We're joined by Stephen Zunes. He's a professor of politics and director of Middle Eastern Studies from the University of San Francisco. Professor Zunes, thank you very much for joining us. Let's first begin with the state of talks. I mean, there seems to be some positive momentum going here. Hamas has responded in good spirits, and Israel has sent a delegation to Doha. So just how close do you think we are in seeing that actual ceasefire deal in Gaza?
Unfortunately, I don't see things moving forward, really. I mean, the Israelis are still demanding that Hamas essentially disband, and they want to keep troops in Gaza. In fact, Netanyahu has even said that he still supports Trump's plan to totally cleanse the territory of Palestinians for this big Mediterranean resort. So this temporary ceasefire that Trump has proposed, would certainly be a good thing if it happened, but Hamas might not be willing to release all the hostages in return, since it would limit any kind of leverage they might have. Hamas has been pressing to a return to the agreement last January, which Israel agreed to, but then broke off after the first phase. That would lead to a permanent ceasefire and return for an release of hostages and an Israeli withdrawal.
Where do you think Mr. Trump's confidence is coming from?
We've seen this before. We even saw this during the Biden administration as well, where the United States will talk very positively because Israel has accepted a proposal, so they can basically blame Hamas if it doesn't go through. And obviously, both sides need to compromise. But we've seen time and time and again a situation where the U.S. will rewrite a ceasefire proposal to meet Israeli demands. And then when the Palestinians demand going back to the original proposal, the United States will say, oh, it's Hamas who's rejecting peace and not wanting to negotiate. So I hate to be so cynical, to be honest, but I really do see this as a more of a propaganda exercise than anything else. I mean, it's possible. It is possible that Trump, knowing how bad this is hurting the U.S. reputation by supporting Israel, given the ongoing atrocities, might try to pressure Netanyahu to compromise more. But I've seen no indication so far that that's going to be the case.
Okay, if we're to zoom in on the proposal itself, Professor, it reportedly includes a staggered hostage releases, phased Israeli withdrawals, and humanitarian aid distribution. Which elements in particular do you think are likely to be the deal breakers in these talks?
I think certainly the extent and the timing of the withdrawal will be one. Another would be the which kind of Palestinian prisoners, Israeli hostages, will it be? How many and how soon? And then the humanitarian aid is a big one because this so-called Gaza humanitarian foundation has been a disaster. It's not gotten aid to that many people, and Israelis have ended up killing scores of Palestinians lining up for food. And Hamas says, no, let's go back to the recognized international relief agencies, the Red Cross and the World Food Kitchen and UNRWA and the others. But Israel and the United States seem pretty clear. They only want to have this particular Israeli-backed group doing the relief efforts.
Okay, Professor, in regards to Mr. Netanyahu's position and constraints, he has said that the war won't end until Hamas is destroyed, a goal that many analysts, including yourself, said that it's impossible, it's an open-ended one. What's the actual incentive or political cost for Mr. Netanyahu to accept a real ceasefire now?
Well, I wish Hamas would be destroyed. I think a lot of Palestinians would agree. But again, realistically, you cannot expect an armed group that is to the de facto administrative power of a region to give up its power like that. I think that the main for Netanyahu, some of his far right ministers have threatened to quit if he has any kind of ceasefire. And that would mean there'd have to be new elections, but Netanyahu would probably lose, and then he'd be subjected to the various criminal indictments that are against him. And so many Israelis are concerned that perhaps Netanyahu has been dragging out the war deliberately for his own political and personal reasons. That's why you've seen so many hundreds of thousands of Israelis protesting. But it's hard to say whether this is going to be the key factor, or will more irrational calculations prevail.
How about Hamas? I mean, what do you think their strategy is now? And to what extent do you think that recent U.S.-Israeli Iranian nuclear site strikes may have influenced its current position in the ceasefire talks?
I don't think the war with Iran had much to do with it. Iran has given only minimal support to Hamas, so they're not a proxy, like Hezbollah or some of the militia groups in Syria and Iraq have been. But if anything, it was something of a distraction where the international community was putting their attention on Iran instead of the ongoing catastrophic situation in Gaza. But I do think that it's hard to think about Hamas in terms of thinking strategically. Obviously, they don't. I mean, the horrific terrorist attack was not only horrible in its own right, but of course, what it gave Israel the excuse to do, and killing of over 50,000 Palestinians, primarily civilians. And so it's very hard to think in terms of strategic logic. I guess like any group, they are off after their own survival. But no, I don't think they're not the smartest group strategically. I can say that.
Okay. How about Mr. Trump? Mr. Trump has positioned himself as the key broker here, claiming credit for the Iran strike, promising pressure on Netanyahu, and teasing a deal. What's your take on his role in all this? A neutral negotiator, or is he pursuing his own agenda?
Well, hardly neutral, given the United States is Israel's #1 military, diplomatic, and financial supporter. But Trump likes to see himself as a deal maker. But a lot of the tactics, a lot of his ways of doing things as a real estate developer is very different than diplomacy. And he's found this already, that the kind of bullying and pressuring often doesn't work. But and he's unwilling to put the pressure on Israel, which is a party that has most of the power here. Now, again, as I noted earlier, it may be behind the scenes. He is trying to get Netanyahu to make a deal, and if he wanted to, it would happen. We've had previous presidents. I mean, Eisenhower, Nixon, Carter, Reagan, the senior President Bush, Obama, have successfully pressured Israel to stop military offensives by threatening to withhold aid. So neither Biden or Trump has done that. So the U.S. does have the power to pressure Israel, but I've seen no indication that Trump has been willing to do that.
Okay, and Mr. Netanyahu's meeting with Mr. Trump this time around is being described as something of a victory lap after last month's U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran's nuclear sites. Just how aligned do you think the two sides are at this stage when it comes to Tehran?
Well, I think the United States has often seen Israel as what one former Secretary of State called our unsinkable aircraft carrier. President Biden said if it weren't for Israel, we'd have to invent them. Because, our Arab allies, they could be overthrown in a coup or a revolution, but Israel's there to stay. And so Israel's been a very important surrogate for U.S. power. And given how Iran is really the only regional power challenging U.S. hegemony in the region, both Israel and the United States have reason to try to limit their power, prevent them from developing nuclear technology, but also punishing them if they get involved in supporting radical groups or doing other things that may be contrary to their interests. So as far as I can see, the U.S. and Israel are pretty close eye to eye on this.
Okay, Professor Zunes, we'll have to leave it there for now, but thank you, as always, for joining us this morning. Stephen Zunes from the University of San Francisco.